gotta go. I'll get my car.
What mine?
Yours. I gotta get me one of those.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bat Dance Discussions. And boy, do we have problems up here. You know, I just watched the entire SnyderVerse arc, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. And then I see some very shit news about Creature Commandos, and I'm like, I have to get this off my chest. And I even watched the entire panel on YouTube just to make sure that I'm informed on it before I speak on it. And my guest for tonight did the same thing too. So thank you, ZodWriter, for that. So no introduction. I literally just said his name right now. So what up, ZodWriter?
Hey, what's up, man?
I'm just really excited to talk about how horrible this whole thing is. This, you know, it's funny. Like panels, I thought would maybe get me more, like, give me any excitement for this whatsoever, and well, it did the exact opposite. So, and we'll talk about why. We'll definitely talk about why later on. But ready to just get this over with?
Sure.
Well, before we do that, we're going to actually talk about The Penguin, episodes 1 through 4. So just to clarify, this is spoiler light. So, I mean, there'll be minor spoilers in this, but nothing too major. So just a little clarification. We were going to do a full-fledged episode 1 through 4 spoiler review with Josh Herrera, but he wasn't really feeling well. So I just pushed that to just do one big review at the end. But I thought, hey, you know, let's give a little taste at least on The Penguin. Also because we need something good to talk about because ZodWriter, just clarification. What were your thoughts on The Batman? The movie, Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves, The Batman.
I despise the movie.
Same here. I think there was some potential, but was not great. But so I guess when you watched The Penguin, were you expecting to like this series?
No, I actually have a process with all TV shows. You have one episode to grab my attention. After that, if you don't grab my attention in the first episode, I am not interested in following, and I just drop it. And that I weed out a lot of very, very bad TV shows that way, because you only get one chance to make a first impression. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what I did with The Penguin. I gave it one chance, and I had no expectations going in. I did not know what to think about it. I did not know where it was going to go, or how it was going to do what it was going to do. And again, yeah, the Batman is one of those movies, Qatar, that is very good for sleep apnea. Like if you're having trouble sleeping, you just turn on the Batman, and within a few minutes you will be in dreamland, and it will be a glorious sleep. I mean, I have to admit, I have to give Matt Reeves credit. That movie is better than NyQuil. I mean, seriously, if you're not feeling well, it is the greatest. Like, shout out to Josh Herrera. I had a great conversation with just Josh this earlier this afternoon. And, it's great to know that he's feeling a little bit better. I know he's been under the weather, but my advice to him is if he's having trouble sleeping at all or he's struggling, just turn on the Batman and he will be off to sleep very, very easily. It is great because you know what it does? It strains your eyes because it's such a bad movie. You get that kind of, it's kind of like if you start reading something really, really boring, like you're reading a book that's really, really boring. Like open up a book, like read about in an insurance policy or something really boring, and you just listen, like your eyes just start to droop, and then you just start to fall asleep. It's exactly the same effect with the Batman. So shout out to Matt Reeves for curing insomnia.
Change, ZodWriter, never change. But yeah, I mean, it says a lot though, Zod, that like the reason why I wanted you to go on talk about the Batman. So that means that when you say that you like this Penguin series, this is no joke. That's coming from someone who hated the Batman. I guess your overall thoughts on these first 4 episodes, I guess.
This series is far better than it has any right to be. I honestly feel like they took one of the very few good elements from Matt Reeves' Batman and somehow turned it into something good that we could all enjoy. And I have to admit, I'm very surprised but see, this is why I like to go into everything with no expectations. Again, I had no expectations for Penguin. I was not looking forward to it. I didn't care. It was just something I felt like I'd check out. Just check out the first episode. And yeah, the story's been great. And I think that's largely been, these 4 episodes have been largely good because it has nothing really to do with the Batman. It has nothing to do with the crap that Matt Reeves put in theaters. It has nothing to do with that. And I love it. If they're smart, this show is being compared, and I don't really feel like this is right, but it's being compared to The Sopranos. I've seen it being compared to that. And I feel like that's kind of an unfair comparison because this is a different thing, but I guess because it deals with the mob and it deals with, gangsters, even though it's Gotham City, I guess you can kind of make a correlation because there's a lot of adult language in it, and it's a very R-rated show. So maybe that's why, but to me, I just think in its own right, it's the best thing that we've gotten from DC since Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I have to say this because there hasn't been anything. That just goes to show you how piss poor DC is. And this show is succeeding in spite of itself. In spite of how bad DC is, this show is doing well. It's like even DC doesn't know what to make of it because they're like, oh my God, this is actually something that people like. We better find a way to screw it up fast because this isn't falling in line with the crap that James Gunn is putting out. So we've got to, and James Gunn's going to be jealous because this is going to be far more popular. This is already a far more popular show than anything he has planned, which Bat Dan and I are going to talk about later. But
Well,
I don't
Zod,
know, man. I
do you
don't
know
know.
so James Gunn took credit for this though? For
But
DC Studios?
yeah. Well, that's the thing. He takes credit for everything. But see, I know how you feel about the Flash movie, but I've got to say that this is the same guy that said the Flash is the greatest superhero movie he's ever seen. Okay, it's the greatest superhero movie of all time. So I have to go from the ransom notes and all the various things and all the different ways that James Gunn has held back DC. And I'm just amazed that the Penguin is able to succeed in spite of who's at the top. Because James Gunn doesn't have a problem putting his DC Studios logo, attaching it to this. He's got it attached to that Penguin. And I almost, as much as I liked the first episode, I almost didn't watch another episode just because that DC Studios logo was attached. Because we all know what that DC Studios logo means. We all know what it represents. It represents the I effed over geekosity, effed over our good friend Mikey Sutton. May he rest in peace.
Absolutely.
FDC and everything that it stands for. And everything. It's all about James Gunn. So of course James Gunn is going to take credit for the success of Matt Reeves of the Penguin, which I have to say, this is another great aspect. Matt Reeves has an executive producer credit on this, but from all appearances, he's not really involved with the series itself. It's different writers, different directors, different producers, and it shows because this series is nothing like that god-awful NyQuil substitute that we got in theaters. I'm blown away, Batman. I can't believe it's as good as it is. In fact, I'm looking forward to watching episode 5 after the show.
Oh yeah, same here. I mean, I was shocked that I liked this series as much as I did too. I did not expect to like it. I thought it was going to be this trash, abysmal series because it's connected to the Batman. But after watching these 4 episodes, ZodWriter, what I want to happen is instead of Matt Reeves writing and directing the Batman Part 2, get these writers and directors, get them involved in the Batman Part 2.
I actually think I'll take it one step further, and I think they should just cancel the Batman Part 2. I don't think they should do anything else and just focus on the Penguin and literally make the Penguin the next, like, Sopranos for Max. Make it as big as you can make it. Give the money you were going to give to Matt Reeves and his clowns that you were going to give to make the next Batman movie to the showrunner of the Penguin, so that the Penguin can get good, can be good. And people are saying, well, they're asking all these questions like, where's Batman? Where's Batman been during all this? And all I have to say to that is, who cares? Forget about Batman. You do not need Batman in this story. That's how you know this story is compelling. That's how you know this story is good, because you don't need Batman. I literally forgot, Batman, that this was a story taking place in Gotham. I forgot that it was associated with DC because they're doing such a good job, like building up the lore, building up the story, the characters. They're doing such a good job with it that that's how you build structure. That's how you build a story. That's how you build something of substance where you're able to show that it is something that's actually better than what it comes from. Because make no mistake, this is derivative from Matt Reeves' god-awful Batman movie, but this is not sharing in the same aesthetic. It's not sharing in the same crap. We got one reference in the very first episode of the Penguin, spoiler alert, to Robert Pattinson's Batman. And that was just because they recapped, I think the series started like 2 weeks after the events of the movie, and you got like a brief recap. And I think Batman was actually referenced in like the news clipping. They mentioned him or something, and they briefly played his stupid theme song, his dum 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 dum, and they just kind of like, alluded to it a little bit, but that was it. And that's great. And they alluded to the Riddler too. They mentioned the Riddler too, but that was it. After that, we haven't heard nothing since, and the series is better for it. It's definitely good. It's definitely better than it has any right to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the characters in it are amazing. Colin Farrell's Penguin is awesome, but
there's just Josh. What's up, Josh Herrera? Great to see another member of the executive branch in the chat. Great to see you, Josh Herrera. Just Josh. Yes.
Great to see. Thanks for stopping by, Just Josh. And hopefully, when you're feeling better, we'll do the full review of
one of your co-stars in the upcoming One Punch Dan movie, Bat Dan.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yes, sir.
Just some of my thoughts on this Penguin series. There's one character who I thought I was going to hate when I saw him in the first episode, but I ended up not hating, was Vic. It's like when you get those sidekick characters, it's always kind of a hit or miss. Like, it's so easy to screw it up because if it falls flat, it falls really flat. But Vic, I really like this character. You just, again, minor spoilers. She started off stealing the Penguin's tires, and then Penguin, a bunch of other people.
They gave him the same origin story that Jason Todd had back in the comic books, in the early Batman comic books, where he was trying to steal the tires off of the Batmobile. They gave Vic the exact same origin story. And if you're a long-time Batman comic book reader, you recognize that instantly when you watch the episode.
Exactly. Except, instead of a superhero who wants to give him a better life, you got the Penguin who wants to dispose of him at first, and then, and then sort of, obviously that changes a little bit.
Mentors him, becomes like a father figure to this kid who's downtrodden. And I actually ended up really, really respecting the Penguin in the way that he's kind of father figured Victor, the way he's trying to build that rapport and trying to teach him and impart on him so that he can get a piece of the pie too, because Penguin knows that the world is big enough, and the kid should be able to get his piece too. So I really appreciate that. I think that it's a great storyline, and it's wonderful to see that dynamic between those two characters.
Absolutely. And what I like about it is that people are not all good or all evil. And what I like about the Penguin is, like, the Penguin's definitely a bad guy. Like, make no mistake, the Penguin is a bad guy on this show, but bad guys can care about people. And at this point where we are in the series right now, he genuinely cares about Vic. You can really tell that with certain moments in the series.
Yeah, definitely.
And they give Vic, the tragic backstory. Obviously certain events in the Batman affected him. And it's just, you really feel bad for Vic. You can see where Vic is coming from, and certain moments where Vic's kind of an idiot and will, like, let's say, maybe don't bring friends to certain places. We'll say that, and Qatar, to kind of address that, at first when I heard about the recast, I didn't really like the idea because I hate recasts if it feels unnecessary. But I will say, in the case of Carmine Falcone, it kind of works in my opinion because he's like a younger version of Carmine Falcone, because it's a 10 years difference. Like, I could believe that Mark Strong is what's his face 10 years later. Like, I could believe those two are the same person, and it's not just, I mean, I'm sure it was the scheduling, but I could actually believe them being the same person even if it wasn't a scheduling issue. So, and then Sophia, oh my God, that actress is amazing. And Sophia Falcone, another great character.
Wonderfully done. She takes so much from her character in the Batman comic, The Long Halloween. She is that character. It's amazing. I'm with you 100%. She is a wonderful actress.
And to
She's
be
killing
honest,
it.
I didn't even mind that 4th episode where, again, minor spoiler, it's basically a flashback episode and it's more about Sophia than it is the Penguin. And some people, like our good friend Aaron Fisher, didn't really like the fact that it was an episode not focusing on the Penguin because the series is called The Penguin. And I understand where he's coming from and where a lot of people are coming from. I was actually fine with it though, because one, the Penguin was in the episode at least. He was in the episode, and
right. We learned that the Penguin. We learned what the Penguin's relationship to her was back in those early days when all that stuff happened. That was the reason why we got that story, because that's going to come into play at some point later on in the show where we're gonna find out more about where that kind of goes, especially with the way things have kind of been left there. And so it was, and I honestly, I felt like it was great to see Sophia's backstory on that, because that was some great acting on her part. Honestly, I mean, you want to see a great performance. That's what this is more than anything else. This is a character-driven drama where you're getting fantastic performances all the way around.
Absolutely. It's just hard to believe that this series is so good with all these characters. But as you said, it's because of how much they've really distanced themselves from the Batman. And
right.
I think it's kind of like, well, here's kind of another example I like. So I have a hot take among people. I actually like the show Young Sheldon better than The Big Bang Theory. And I think there's certain humor in the later episodes of Big Bang Theory I didn't really like so much, about how, like, the girl throwing away the guy's comic book stuff. Wasn't really a fan of that. But Young Sheldon was good when it stood on its own. But then the series finale, they flash forward to Sheldon and Amy in their adult days, Big Bang Theory timeline. And some of that Big Bang Theory humor I didn't like creeped its way into Young Sheldon. Why am I talking about this now? Well, the reason for that is because that's my only concern, is that towards the end, when they connect more to the Batman, that's when I'm concerned about the series. Is
I kind of feel like if they were going to do that, though, they would have already, because there's been plenty of opportunities for them to, sprinkle Robert Pattinson's Batman somewhere in the in it. There's been quite a few instances where I thought, oh yeah, I could see Batman showing up here if they wanted to insert him. But like, I have the opposite view that you do here, where I really don't think they're going to do that, because it's like it seems like they're trying to build their own thing. So by staying adjacent to it, but not, letting any of the tropes from it creep into the Penguin, they've got a winning formula on their hands. But I'm betting you any money, Batman, that this success of this show is probably surprising them too. To be honest.
Well, because I think one thing it does is it gives some hope for the Batman universe, because at least there's some aspect of it that people really like. Now, granted, unfortunately, the main core of it is still not good, so that's the hard part about the universe. But I'm hoping that maybe, again, if they can take some of these writers for the Batman Part 2, maybe the Batman franchise can be good. Because what this Penguin series shows, ZodWriter, is that DC can do Elseworlds. Is that Elseworlds can work really well with DC. Is that they can have their main timeline, but you can do good Elseworld stories and please more sections of the fandom. Because that's what DC is great with. The multiverse, Elseworlds. And this Penguin series, to me, shows that DC needs to lean in on that. Yeah, I mean, not all of it's going to be good. Like, obviously, that we did our review on that already, so we're not going to drench up old wounds. But that's more because they made a sequel to something that didn't need a sequel. But I mean, who knows, Qatar? We don't know. She could live. We don't know that, though. We never know what's going to happen. I did enjoy Stargirl, but I think it ended at least it had a real ending, so I'm not going to beg for more. But I guess any final thoughts on the Penguin before we move on?
No, just that it's a great show, and hopefully the trend continues. Usually, they say in every TV show, the fourth episode in the series usually sets the tone for what you can expect down the line. And I think that fourth episode was really, really great, showcasing the backstory of Sophia. So you know, they could screw this up. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna be cautiously optimistic continuing. And one brief, spoiler story I want to talk about briefly is Victor and his decision to not leave Gotham with his girlfriend. And there's Aaron Fisher in the chat.
Shout out
Man,
to Aaron Fisher.
Shout out to the great Aaron Fisher. Aaron has an awesome video out today. Guys, where he broke down and gave his thoughts about the whole James Gunn and Creature Commandos thing. Not unlike our thoughts here.
Oh,
and not unlike our thoughts.
I will be watching that after this stream. Because believe me, I saw that video. I'm like, cannot wait to watch after this. But yeah,
but that one storyline in the Penguin where where Victor chooses to stay with the Penguin rather than go away with his girlfriend. I thought that was a great storyline, because that was a great decision. Like, what am I gonna do? I could be here. I could become. I could do this. And it just goes to show that he's becoming just as attached to the Penguin as the Penguin is to Victor. Victor's starting to care about the Penguin in a way like that. Like, that's my partner. You know what I mean? Like, that's I want to keep working with this guy. I want to keep learning from this guy, right? But that's like a tough decision, because I know he wanted to leave with his cute girlfriend, but you can't have both. You gotta make a decision. So I think that was the third episode.
Yes, that was the third episode, because Vic wasn't in the fourth episode, because that was all
Sophia.
And I will say, the one thing I wish the Penguin that episode did, I wish they at least showed Penguin and Victor at the end of that episode. But
yeah, that would have been cool. I agree.
That's the only thing I would have done differently from that. But other than that, great series. And probably, actually, we do have another great DC thing to talk about later on. There'll be one other good DC topic to talk about. But let's get this over with, ZodWriter. So, my question for you, ZodWriter.
Jesus Christ.
Are you going to have a tribute to Ozu in One Punch Man? Are you going to, like you are Papa Gunny Poo? Are you going to put
There is a scene in One Punch Man where One Punch Man accidentally kicks a Krypto-like looking puppy in the face. There is a scene in One Punch Man where that happens. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a red collar on the puppy, and I'm going to give the puppy a little red cape so that he kind of has so it's kind of like a little Krypto kind of reference. So I had actually forgotten, because I was going over some of the footage today when I was doing something special for tonight. I was going through the footage, and I'm like, wait a minute. You had asked me if there was a puppy, and I had totally forgotten about that scene. But there is a scene in there where it's the puppy. He kicks the puppy. Anyway, so yeah, to answer to your question, yes, there will be a scene.
Great, because I will say this though. I think our good friend, late great friend Mikey Sutton, did scoop that Krypto was likely gonna be in Superman.
I thought he said he was going to be in it. I think I remember Mikey saying Krypto was going to be in the movie.
Yeah. So, hey, at least we can say Mikey was right. So that's, in some ways, this is good news because this is good news for our late great friend Mikey Sutton that he was right. But in terms of DC, though, in general, what I'm not against Krypto necessarily being in the DC cinematic universe per se. My issue is that
keep him in the freaking cartoons, okay? You don't need to have him in the movie. Come on. James Gunn is just I don't know. I'm
it just to me it's like this movie's already cramped enough as is with all these characters. Now you're introducing a super dog.
Krypto's gonna talk, and he's gonna talk like Scooby-Doo. Remember, James Gunn made the Scooby-Doo movie.
Well, supposedly right now, according to Gunny Poo, Krypto does not talk in this movie unless you count barking, but he could change his mind because he's famous for doing that. But
come on. I wouldn't believe James Gunn as far as I could throw him. You cannot believe anything that comes out of this man's mouth. He lies in one side of his mouth, and then it goes in one side, comes out the other, and then he forgets what he lies about and backtracks. James Gunn is such a bad liar, he can't even remember what his lies are. If you're going to be a good liar, you have to keep track of your lies. He doesn't keep track of his lies. What a moron. Seriously, I cannot wait until the opening credits of One Punch Man on July 11th, 2025, when we say dedicated to the Scooper Supreme, Mikey Sutton, and James Gunn's dad. I cannot wait for that on the screen. I want to show James Gunn's dad. I am going to do a tribute for James Gunn's dad and show James Gunn's dad, I'm making a better movie for you in tribute to you than your son, because your son is a piece of crap. 100%.
Absolutely, ZodWriter. And it's just, and again, the dog, and again, our Aaron Fisher pointed this out too. The dog doesn't even look like how Krypto's supposed to look. It's just a scrawny,
It's a scrawny looking rodent that James Gunn thinks is a dog.
Yeah. And I know James Gunn made it about himself and a tribute to one of his dogs, and puts a heartwarming story.
I love this. I love this comment. I want to read this comment. Has anyone checked to see how much those weasel statues have sold in comparison to all the McFarlane SnyderVerse figures?
Jay, don't go anywhere. I want you to bring that comment up again later on, because that is definitely going to come up later on. Believe me. So like
Aaron Fisher points out too, that the SnyderVerse stuff is always selling out, and nobody wants those James Gunn toys. They're not selling at all. It's James Gunn's dog. He does it for sympathy.
Well, exactly. He puts a story, which I'm not going to lie, I thought was a heartwarming story, but he does that again to get people to warm up to his DCU. It's like, I'll put a sentimental story on to make people love Krypto, and it's just
we're gonna love Krypto just like I'm gonna pay tribute to your dad, James. Maybe I'll be able to use you to draw more people to One Punch Dad with. Dedicated to James Gunn's dad, with love.
What's really funny though? I'm surprised James Gunn didn't make up some story about how he forgot his dog's birthday or something. Like, he forgot his dad's. I still can't get over the fact that he thought forgetting his dad's birthday was a good story. Like, if I publicly admitted to forgetting my parents' birthday, I would be about that.
Just Josh, you can still find the Suicide Squad merch on the shelves for clearance. No one wants it. And guess what? I was in Walmart the other day, and I checked the $5 Blu-ray bin, and guess what movie is still in the Walmart $5 Blu-ray bin? Guess what movie is still in there? I should have taken I should have taken a shot with it for my phone and posted it on social media, because it's still in there.
But
I picked it up.
it was COVID that caused that movie to fail. So why it can't still be on the shelf because it was COVID's fault that movie
No, it's
failed.
not. It's not on a shelf. It's in a bin. It's in like a garbage type bin with a Walmart logo on it.
It's just
They're full of crap. Even the Creature Commandos trailer, it says from James Gunn, and it makes it seem like, you know, he's a big name. Nobody cares about James Gunn. There's no hype for any of this stuff. It's all just let's peddle his garbage. Let's peddle all the. This is James Gunn saying, you know what? I've got a bunch of crappy ideas, and I want to make my crappy ideas real. So we're going to start DC with Creature Commandos, something nobody asked for. This is like Guardians of the Galaxy, but like worse. Like at least Guardians of the Galaxy, they had some, you know, some of the characters had like redeeming qualities and stuff. But Creature Commandos just seems like it's just a bunch of total scumbags, and there's like no redemption whatsoever. You don't care about anybody. I mean, even the chick with the fishbowl on her face, like I feel bad for her that she's in that universe, but the show itself, it just looks like trash.
Oh, absolutely.
I've never been more disinterested in DC than I am right now.
It's just like all the characters in this series from the trailer, I'm just not into at all. None of the characters.
And I wanted to punch what's his name in the face. What's the guy? Sean Gunn, the brother. You know, a weasel. The way he kept talking about all the licking, I just wanted to go up to him and punch him in the face. I'm so glad I wasn't in that panel with those 40 people that were in that panel with James Gunn and Horowitz, the interviewer, and all those people. And what's with not hardly letting any of the other people in the cast talk? Why did James Gunn have to monopolize the entire conversation? He talked for nearly the entire 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, ZodWriter. That's actually a really great point. It's you bring this big panel, and you know, hold on to that because I definitely have a lot I want to say about that. But in terms of the trailer itself, it just wasn't interesting at the end of the day. I saw the trailer, I watched it, a few times. And again, it's funny. He's putting Batman characters in to make it more interesting. Clayface. Clayface is in the trailer. Did you notice that DC likes to do this a lot? They always like to bank on Batman when they're unsure of something. They got to throw a Batman character in there. So let's do Clayface.
Well, George Clooney is their Batman, so.
Yeah, exactly, Aaron Fisher.
100%.
And again, I mean, really, at the end of the day, the series it didn't. I wish I could be more specific, break down. There's nothing to break down. It was basically the Suicide Squad with monsters instead of
in cartoon form. Yeah. Like a cartoon monster, more vulgar version of the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently, according to the panel, there's going to be there's allegedly going to be a lot of sex in this cartoon. So if you're a prude and you don't like sexual situations, Charles Austin, you better not watch Creature Commandos.
Much love, Charles Austin, by the way. But yeah, I know that stuff is kind of very not.
All I'm saying is, when you start a universe, a DCEU with Creature Commandos, if you didn't know nothing about the DCU, okay, and you just saw this trailer as the first thing we're getting, would you be hyped? Would you be excited?
No, Because here's my biggest
Superman sex tape.
here's another issue I have with this trailer. Actually, you're showing the Weasel with kids, and we know from the Suicide Squad's backstory.
I rest my case. Is that appropriate? Did we need to see that?
Well, here's my biggest issue with this ZodWriter, is that James Gunn's history. He got in trouble for certain tweets, and in my opinion, he got a second chance. And he, if I got fired for inappropriate tweets and I was given my job back, the last thing I would do is reference that same kind of humor again, and that's what it feels like to me. Doing any kind of humor.
But he's in charge now. He's the head in charge. He can do what he wants. That's the thing. He's the head of DC Studios now. So now he can flaunt all his most, base and disgusting desires because there's nobody to rein him in. There's nobody to tell him. And this is quite evident by what Creature Commandos is and everything else in the DCU lineup so far, that there's nobody there to tell him, James Gunn, no, you can't do that. He's in charge now. So he's going to double down on everything, almost like he's giving the finger, to anybody that, doesn't like his sense of humor or doesn't like his sensibilities. And his sense of humor is twisted, sick, and disgusting. And that's what he's into. So he can only create content based on what he's into, based on the kind of person he is. So we should already know what type of person he is based on all of that. And I know, we don't like to get personal about people, but we got to be fair about this.
Mhm.
He's going to take Weasel and he's going to make Weasel the most disgusting, most, reprehensible character he could possibly make him be, because he can get away with it because he's the head of the studio. So
exactly, and it's.
But I'm glad you pointed that out, because that bothered me too. But I'm like, it's James Gunn. What do you expect from a pig but a grunt?
And there's a lot to talk about in this panel, but overall, this trailer it didn't really grab me at all.
Really.
It was an animated shit fest. That's all it really was at the end of the day. The characters just were very bland and
an animated dumpster fire.
Oh yeah, yep. I remember that, Aaron. I remember exactly what you're talking about. Peacemaker himself was joking about kids being attractive, and I was thinking even then, like, is that really appropriate for you? I mean, that's not even appropriate for the average person to joke about, mind you, let alone James Gunn. So, I know exactly.
James Gunn is trying to normalize that type of behavior, as though there's nothing wrong with that, as though it's acceptable. It's not to get too political here or anything, but it's like it's like the evolution. It's like after so much, you're okay with this, you're okay with that, you're okay with this. How far can you push it? Well, James Gunn is trying to go there. And yeah.
Well, yeah. And especially in this panel too. Like the panel itself, it's like they're talking. I swear, like the amount of
that was a head scratcher, wasn't it? I mean, what?
Oh, ZodWriter, I guess you better check your back chat. But yeah, it's just like the amount of times like sex was mentioned in that panel. I'm like, why are you talking about this so much? Because here's my thing with sexual humor: is that it's funny if it's well executed, but if it falls flat, it falls really flat, and I don't need to hear about it every like 5 to 10 seconds, for crying out loud. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was like the amount of times, like, just very weird jokes going on in that panel. And
yep.
And honestly, people like, I feel like some people like Alan Tudyk, they like only talked when there was like some joke about sex to talk about. It was mostly that panel was mostly James Gunn. And I just love how James Gunn mentioned he wrote the entire series before he was even hired as DC co-head. It's like, I'm going to greenlight it myself. I'm going to greenlight my own project. And yes, absolutely, Aaron Fisher, that kind of humor, never okay.
No, It's not. But I'm telling you, James Gunn is, they better hope, WBD better hope that that something doesn't happen and James Gunn doesn't get exposed, if you know what I mean. Because if something goes down, they're going to have the DCU is going to have a real big problem on its hands, even bigger than it has now, because just like you, Bat Dan, I feel like and Aaron Fisher, I feel like the DCU is DOA. That's how I feel. So,
yeah,
this
absolutely.
is just
this panel just didn't interest me in Creature Commandos. I mean, here's one of my biggest issues with this starting out with the series. One, you're starting out with a cartoon, but two, you're starting out with obscure characters like Guardians of the Galaxy, MCU. Could you imagine if the MCU, before Iron Man came out, they started with a Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon? That's what they're going to start with the MCU. Would that have been a good start to the MCU?
Well, if James Gunn was starting it off, that's exactly what they would have done. And no, it wouldn't have been a good start. It wouldn't have been successful in the same way. The only reason Guardians of the Galaxy was successful was because it had Marvel backing it. It had a whole MCU built up behind it to facilitate a scumbag like James Gunn to come in and do his thing. Yeah, I'm with you, Aaron. There is nothing to be excited about. You're sitting in there and you're thinking to yourself, well, okay, there's 40 people in this auditorium listening to James Gunn make all these sex jokes and all these, all this inappropriate stuff. He spent 40 minutes literally talking about nothing. All they did was they went around round robin and let everybody else who was on the panel kiss James Gunn's ass. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I was so disappointed in Horowitz for doing this panel. Horowitz is just another big whore. He's just like everybody else. Like, I couldn't believe it. I'm watching this. I'm like, this is the same guy who had a paid event interviewing Zack Snyder not too long ago. A paid event. Not Zack. Well, he did interview Zack, didn't he? But he interviewed. The paid event was with Henry Cavill, right?
Yeah.
Right after Henry Cavill was allegedly returning. And how ironic, Horowitz is now one of the biggest cheerleaders for James Gunn and co. Give me a break. Oh, absolutely. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, what's his name? Josh Horowitz. What's his name? Isn't that his name, Josh? I'm like, get out of here. I'm going to send just Josh to kick your ass. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just all this, like, trying to hype up the DCU, trying to get people excited. But the reality is, you can't fake excitement. If people are not excited for a movie, they're not excited for it. I mean, I have seen very few real people excited for this. And this panel, I'm telling you right now, did not change my mind. This panel, Zod, it did change my mind. It made me less excited than I already was for the DC.
It makes you feel like, God, I just want this to die. I just want this to end. I want this to die a horrible death. Like we were talking about the Penguin, succeeding in spite of everything that's going on around it. It's unfortunate because if this goes down, DC Studios has their name on that Penguin thing. Mm-hmm. So the Penguin will be associated with this dog shit. And that's not a good thing. That's a big problem. If I was the showrunner for the Penguin, I'd be like, can we take that DC Studios logo off of our show, because we don't when James Gunn gets ousted, either because he's exposed or because something else happens and his house gets raided or something, we don't want to be associated with the DCU fallout. So can you please take that DC Studios label off of the Penguin, please?
See you, Aaron. Thanks for stopping by.
Aaron. Yeah, man. Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's there's just nothing to be excited about. And then updates about other DCU projects. I mean, basically, I guess Supergirl's filming in London in winter or like January or something. And oh yeah, Superman trailer coming soon, but not too soon.
I just have to ask, how many One Punch Dan trailers have I released? And One Punch Dan's coming out on the same day as Superman, and we've seen no Superman trailers to this point.
Nope, none at all.
Just saying.
And I mean, because here's the thing, though, with this Creature Commandos, if that fails, that's a bad first impression for the DCU. It's what you said. You get one chance to make a good first impression. So that's a bad first impression for the DCU. But okay, so there'll be a lot of people who probably won't watch the series and go and just start with Superman 2025 for the DCU. And that's why it's so hard for me to even really think about all these other projects happening right now. People keep saying, oh, the Batman's going to get folded into the DCU, or the Batman Part 2 is going to get canceled because of the DCU. But here's the thing. This is all contingent, at the end of the day, this is all contingent on Superman being a success. Because if that movie flops, shareholders are going to have a meeting with Zazoff and be like, yeah, we need to get rid of this guy. This is not going to work. Because that's a main movie. And if that failing,
they should already know that this isn't going to work. They should be able to tell at this point. They're doing it in spite of the fact that they know it's not going to work, because it's not about getting it to work. It's about letting James Gunn do whatever the heck he wants. Because if it was about working, they never would have got rid of Henry Cavill. They would have let Zack Snyder finish out the SnyderVerse.
Yeah.
It's not about working. There's nothing working here. Like I said, the Batman, the Penguin series working is an anomaly. It's an exception to the rule. It's not by any means. That's why I say the smartest thing they could do is fight to get that DC Studios logo removed from the series, because you do not want to be associated with James Gunn when things get ugly.
No, you do not. No, you do not. And even honestly, even if none of that stuff gets exposed, even if you just go on the quality, the Superman movie coming out and flopping, that affects DC Studios. That's the main crutch of DC Studios. So that's why it's like these other projects they have, like Green Lantern, these other updates, just like at the end of the day, none of this is guaranteed. Superman has to come out. We had a whole DCEU slate, remember? Remember that slate? And how many
that was just him pulling stuff. That was just James Gunn pulling stuff out of his butt because he had to create some sort of a slate. That's all it was. He did that 15 minutes before he went live.
Yeah. That slate was a joke. I'm just saying, and we saw the DCEU slate, that was a real slate, and that didn't even end up coming true. So this slate. So, this kind of leads me to a question though, ZodWriter. Was a reboot the right call? So I'm not talking about James Gunn's reboot, mind you. I'm talking just in general, generally speaking. Was a reboot the right call for a cinematic universe after, instead of going forward with the SnyderVerse full time or the DCU, whatever you want to call it?
I'm gonna say no, 100% no.
I actually have a hot take to this, but there's a catch to what I'm gonna say, and this will kind of come up in the next panel. I do think for a long-term cinematic universe, I think a reboot in some ways was a right call to do, because here's the thing. I think the DCU was the best direction going forward, but I think there was too much bad blood, too much confusion with continuity that happened with the DCEU, because you got Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. You have some movies that fit with that continuity, some movies that fit with Zack Snyder's Justice League continuity. I think The whole
Right, but
continuity.
see, what people see what people always forget this, Batman. Zack Snyder was going to end his universe with a way for them to do what they wanted to do.
I'm glad you said that, ZodWriter. I'm very glad you said that, because that's actually gonna be kind of like my next. That's actually gonna be my next topic, actually, after this. But I mean, actually, no. We'll just jump right to it, because I think this is what I'm talking about, though. This is what should have happened to me, with my opinion, when I say the reboot was the right call. I think they should have done Zack Snyder's plan before hiring DC Studios co-heads, mind you. They should have gone with Zack Snyder's plan. Do your Man of Steel 2, the Batfleck movie, Wonder Woman 3, release the air cut, Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 and 3, under Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi's plan. Do those movies, and then end Zack's reboot. And that's when you start hiring DC heads for DC Studios. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to worry about any baggage, because that universe is done. No fans are going to be asking for anything. They can just literally do what they want.
Yeah.
And yes. Yeah, and exactly, Socks. Because that was the problem. Because you had all these movies that were coming out, and people didn't go to see them because of the reboot.
It was wild, wasn't it? There was like 4 movies like that just was just wasted money down the toilet, and James Gunn didn't care. He wanted all of them to tank, because all he wants to do is put out his own stuff. That's all he cares about. And I'm going to be honest with you, James Gunn doesn't even care if any of his stuff is successful, because it's just stuff that he wants to do. That's all it's about.
Yeah. Exactly. It's his stuff. It's not the stuff that the fans, the paying customers want.
No.
Exactly. Flop after flop. And oh yeah, definitely want to see this too. And yeah, see, that's the problem though. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I say the reboot was the right call, not Gunn's reboot. But I think the best thing they should have done was finish the SnyderVerse, then reboot, start clean, fresh, because then you don't have to worry about all this messy continuity that happened because Warner Brothers fucked up the DCEU. You can just
Right.
But I'll go one step further, ZodWriter. I'll go one step further. I know Gunny Poo would not have done this. I do know that. But with DC Studios having this Elseworlds label and Cavill already announced he was back, I'm just saying, fun fact, I guess today is the anniversary of Cavill's cameo in Black Adam, the 2-year anniversary. So thank you for rubbing salt in the wounds, Hollywood. But anyways, I'm just saying, if James Gunn had given Cavill a 5-movie contract of Elseworld movies, ZSJL 2, ZSJL 3, Black Adam v Superman, The Dark Knight Returns, directed by Zack Snyder, and Kingdom Come, if he had given Cavill a 5-movie contract and said, hey, you're not going to be the main Superman, but we do have some exciting Elseworld plans for you, I would have even had a little more respect for the reboot then. Even if you're not necessarily finishing it first, but you're giving us the story as an Elseworlds, have more respect then.
My thing is that's all baloney. They should have just let Zach do his thing. They wouldn't have been in this situation. They did it to themselves. Zach had a great plan. They would have just let Zach do Zach. They could have did whatever they wanted afterwards. Zach would have opened the floodgates for them. Zach was going to facilitate the perfect, seamless way that they could have did DC Rebirth, is what the next arc could have been called. And they could have went wild and did whatever they wanted to do. Zach was going to give them lots of ways. It's insane to me. It's like they're allergic to money. They don't want money because they hired the guy that lost the studio so much cash.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying, if I lost my company $100 million, I would not have been promoted to head of the company. I can
lost them more than that, and he lost them more than that, and he admitted it on the panel. He said, "Well, I had this idea for Creature Commandos in my head, and then when I magically became head of the studio, I greenlit myself. I greenlit myself. He said that on the panel.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Only at WB would this type of conduct be tolerated. And
Yeah,
they hire
no,
a scumbag like James Gunn to run the studio. If that's not incompetence and gross mismanagement of your company, I don't know what is.
Exactly, ZodWriter. And I would say with Sox, I agree. I mean, I'll put it like this: Superman this season, like I've watched Superman Lois, and I can tell you right now, they've definitely rushed some storylines because they were like, at least they're getting a final season, and they're getting told they can end the season, but it's pretty obvious that there's certain storylines that were kind of rushed through because of that. So,
well, they come out and say it's because of James Gunn, because he doesn't want any competing projects.
yeah. Yep. Sin Havoc, we know. But you know what? You know what my biggest issue though with this reboot is just in general? It's this selective continuity. Because one reason why I was defending the idea of a reboot is because the continuity was confusing. So you start clean, you start fresh. But what James Gunn said, this is actually what influenced me to do this panel, mind you. When he said that, oh well, stuff that is mentioned in Creature Commandos, that's how you know what's canon from the Suicide Squad and Peacemakers is if we mention it, it's canon. So yeah, go with it. I'm like, that's more confusing, not less. It's like, oh, we don't want anyone to have watched the Suicide Squad or Peacemaker. And I'm like, okay. But the problem with that, though, is that people already did watch the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, and they're going to be confused by it. Or if a friend tells them, hey, oh yeah, this happened in the Suicide Squad. Oh, I better go watch that. They're going to be confused. The fact that you need James Gunn to clarify this on the panel for it to make sense is already confusing. If you're going to do a reboot, do a reboot. Not this bullshit of, oh, well, I'm keeping all my stuff and some of
Well, Sin Havoc says it right. It's not a reboot. It's a retcon.
And that's even worse. That's more confusing, not less. If you're going to reboot, do a reboot. And that's another reason why they should have just finished off the DCEU properly. Because then James Gunn could have done his season 2 of Peacemaker before rebooting. But I think that's one of the biggest, aside from the SnyderVerse, mind you, is the fact that the DCEU is like his stuff is carrying over, but not anything else. If he was rebooting his stuff, I'd have a lot more respect.
Friends and family package, yes.
But here's my question, ZodWriter. So Peacemaker, general audience person, okay, they're starting the DCEU right now. Peacemaker season 2 comes out. What general audience person is going to be, oh, I don't have to watch Peacemaker season 1 for that to make sense?
I don't know, and I don't care. James Gunn needs to just go away. Once James Gunn is gone, all this will get cleared up. He's the problem.
Exactly. I agree, ZodWriter. Here's the problem. We need a merger to happen. I hate saying this, but we
A
need
hostile takeover is what we need to happen at this point.
And this time, unlike this last merger, every single person who worked there needs to go. Because I think that's what happened with this merger, is that basically, most of the bad people were gone, but a slither of the old regime remained with Peter Safran. And then he spread his little sickness to the entire new regime of Warner Brothers.
Yep.
Of Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yep.
So we need all slithers gone this time. That's the only way that this brand gets saved. That's the only way the DC brand gets saved. But this DCU selective continuity doesn't work. It's either reboot it or don't. No halvesies, because that's confusing. The only way I will say that Peacemaker Season 2 can make sense in the DCU is if you pull a Rick and Morty. End of the Cronenberg episode, where basically where Peacemaker and Vigilante destroy the entire universe they're in, and they go to a new universe where their counterparts died, and they just say, hey,
quantum immortality.
Yeah, exactly. Their stuff is the same, but the stuff around them is not the same. At least you have some explanation that makes sense just from watching the series.
Well, I mean, at that point, they might as well do like a Crisis on Infinite Earths and just blow up the planet.
Yeah. Just something, but we're just going to have to, James Gunn's just going to explain it like, it's just a mess. But you know what, though? What's funny, though, people keep saying there's no demand for the SnyderVerse, but SnyderVerse merchandise sells. The first day, that double pack of the Batfleck Nightmare and the Batfleck Armored statue sold out instantly. And I think the current Batfleck Armored is sold out as well. There's a lot of stuff selling out. It's so funny. This dead universe that no one is just interested in sells so quickly. Isn't it funny how that works out?
Yeah, people can't get enough of it.
What were you, ZodWriter? Did you get any of the new merchandise?
No.
I got some. I got the Batfleck Nightmare and the Dark Side Throne. Probably shouldn't have done that because I don't know if my bank account can really afford that, but sometimes you gotta be a little irresponsible. But just like, what do you think about this? Just in general, this merchandise selling.
I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I was like that. I got all the figures from before. I got the the Dark Side and the Cavill Superman and all that. These figures are amazing. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not surprised that they're selling well. Sox is right. SnyderVerse merch always sells well. So nothing new here. James Gunn is still a scumbag, and people still love the SnyderVerse.
Exactly. And the thing, I'm just saying, if they continued the SnyderVerse, they'd have more merchandise they could sell. But it's just, again,
well, that's how you know, because they had James Gunn merchandise for the other stuff. They had James Gunn merchandise, and they were, remember, at all the other events where they were like marking down the James Gunn stuff because they couldn't sell it.
Yeah, no one wants it because, no one gives a shit about these obscure characters.
Nobody cares about Weasel, Creature Commandos. Listen, James Gunn, it's not going to work, okay? It was great. It's just like the example you gave before about if you were to start the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe with Guardians of the Galaxy. Not happening. And nobody wants merch of that crap either. Nobody's going to buy Weasel t-shirts. Nobody's going to buy Weasel statues. Nobody's going to buy any of that. It's garbage. Whatever.
Obscure characters can be cool, but you still have to earn that place. You can't just shove it in our faces and expect people to love it. Like Guardians of the Galaxy were obscure characters, but they earned their way into the public favor.
Right, and they had an entire MCU already established with the bigger characters that people cared about before that happened. For somebody who works so closely with Kevin Feige, James Gunn is sure a moron when it comes to following that template. Like, why would you introduce your universe with something as obscure as Creature Commandos? Makes no sense.
Doesn't at all. I will say Superman actually makes sense to introduce a universe with. Creature Commandos does not. He did this Creature Commandos cartoon a little bit later.
He even mentioned that there's going to be Creature Commandos characters in the Superman movie.
Oh, yeah.
He said that in the panel. And that doesn't make people think, well, gee, this guy really doesn't know what he's doing. This guy's the biggest freaking fool. The only people that are going to care about this movie are James Gunn's freaky fans. That's the only people who are going to care. And the funny thing is, those are the people that don't pay to see movies. So they'll be pirating the movie, so the movie won't make any money. They'll all be watching the camcorder copies from home, talking about how great the movie is and attacking people on social media who have a problem with the movie, who actually paid to go see the movie. That's what's going to happen. You already know. Unbelievable.
Oh, interesting, Sin Havoc. So that means James Gunn must have already cast his Batman and Damian Wayne then. So
yeah, James Gunn's just not telling anybody. He's keeping that a secret. I'm betting it's George Clooney, to be honest with you. I'm betting George Clooney is Batman. I could just see Gunn doing that, especially because he wants to make Brave and the Bold.
Yeah. That's what James Gunn's movie is. But at the end of the day, though, the SnyderVerse sells. Warner Brothers knows it, and that's why they're putting that on sale still. Because if they really thought that universe was dead, or that no one cared about it, they would not be spending the money to have these products made at all.
No, they need something to keep the lights on, Batman. I mean,
and you know, I'll say this: if they really want to keep the lights on, ZodWriter, our mission: sell ZSJL to Netflix, sell SnyderVerse to Netflix. We don't, whatever that universe does, it does. As you can see, we're not excited about it. So our focus right now is the sell hashtags, because Warner Brothers knows that SnyderVerse sells. They need something to keep the lights on, and that's why now more than ever, sell is viable, because Warner Brothers needs the money.
I think we're gonna have to. They're not gonna get the point until the Superman movie flops harder than any movie ever. When this Superman movie bombs and does worse than Joker 2, then Warner Brothers Discovery will sell the SnyderVerse to Netflix.
Yeah, but in the meantime, though, focus on what we can control, which is giving Netflix our engagement and not Warner Brothers. Because I do want to make this clear. Yes, we do need Warner Brothers to sign off on this. Absolutely. The idea, though, of not including them in the trending events, though, is because we don't want to give them the engagement in the meantime. We want to give that engagement to Netflix, so that Warner Brothers is just desperate for the money. So that's our mission right now. Whatever's going on with DC, it's out of our control right now. We can't do anything about it. What we can do, though, is campaign for the DC we are interested in, and show a company that treats its fans' rights, Netflix, our engagement.
Yeah.
So, any final words on this, ZodWriter?
Nope. I'm in agreement with you there.
In that case, sell ZSJL to Netflix, sell SnyderVerse to Netflix. Or, as I said when I woke up from my anesthesia, Ezra Miller is innocent. Sell ZSJL to Netflix, sell SnyderVerse to Netflix. And now, the part that ZodWriter's been waiting for. A one-punch Dan update. I asked ZodWriter to give us a one-punch Dan update for this show, this stream.
All right. Well, I do have a little trailer that I put together for this. Let's see here. Let me just pull this one out here. One Punch Dan. Got so many trailers here now, so we could talk a little bit about it after. Where the heck is it? It's always such a problem trying to find it afterwards. Here we go.
It's all in the cards, baby.
You are so much more than a computer to me.
It's all in the cards, baby.
You are so much more than a computer to me.
I love you, Alpha Pass. Does my response please you?
You know what? I used to think you were somebody, One Punch Dan. Now I realize you're just an egotistical narcissist. Who died and made you Superman? You're a bigger joke than the purple monster I took down when I was fucking 9.
And you, Josh, are out of line.
Come on, Short King, let's see what you got, you delusional punk.
Just to clarify, those punching sounds were not from the trailer.
Yeah. So there you go. A little trailer for One Punch Dan to give you a little bit of, and that's the thing. I actually put out trailers for this film, and James Gunn hasn't given us one piece of actual footage from Superman. So yes, I am comparing One Punch Dan to Superman. I'm sorry. It's going to be a better film.
I mean, it's going to be a way better film. I mean, no comparison, honestly. It's like comparing, I don't know, that's like comparing like Justice League to Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's just, there's no comparison to me. Zack Snyder's Justice League is better, and in this case, One Punch Dan is Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm just...
Oh yeah, Darth Plato. One Punch Dan is definitely real. Yes.
It's real, and it's going to be well written and have awesome characters. And he's going to be doing it all from his couch, mind you. James Gunn is out filming at locations, various sets, and ZodWriter's doing everything from his couch, and ZodWriter thinks it's going to look better than Gunny Poops.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
and the film, I mean, the production is going well on the movie. The movie's coming along, and at some point in I'd say mid 2025, before the summer, me, you, and then Josh and Qatar and Bishop, who I have dubbed as the executive branch, we'll get together and we will all watch the assembly cut of One Punch Dan, and that way I will know, where I have to make changes and adjustments, and anything, if I have to do any reshoots or anything. But so far, One Punch Dan's coming out pretty good. So if you have any questions with regards to One Punch Dan, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. And Bat Dan, if you have any questions about the most recent trailer, of course.
I mean, nothing that I haven't seen before, but still just looks amazing, though. I guess I'm trying to think one I didn't already ask you. Oh, there you are, Josh. You and me, Josh. We're gonna go right now. Okay, I guess this is from watching this trailer again. Is just Josh gonna get his ass handed to him by One Punch Dan? That's my question.
All I could say about that is that the fight between One Punch Dan, I don't want to spoil it, but I will give you a hint. The fight between One Punch Dan and Just Josh is slightly reminiscent of the fight that Batman and Superman had in BVS. There are some similarities because they have differences in ideologies, not quite as vast as the ones that Batman and Superman had, but it's going to be quite a fight. As far as inspiration on what inspired, what's inspired me to make this movie, there's a lot of inspirations. And one of the biggest inspirations, J-Mar, I have to say, is James Gunn, because James Gunn is making this god-awful, mediocre Superman movie, and I wanted to prove that I could make a better movie with lots of software, artificial intelligence, good writing, and it's working. It's happening. I'm pulling it off. The movie is being made, and when it's done, I think when it's done, it's gonna look like a multi-million-dollar movie. One Punch Man needs to have a series of nightmares about Christmas trees. It doesn't have any nightmares about Christmas trees, but one thing it does have is it has a cute little white puppy with a red collar and a red cape kind of thing, kind of reminiscent of Krypto. One Punch cinematic universe. It is a cinematic universe. The plan is for 3 movies and several spin-off projects. So, yeah.
Including Just Josh, right?
Well, Just Josh is a TV show. So, yeah, I'll probably have the pilot episode of Just Josh done for, in fact, let me see here. I'll probably have the pilot episode for Just Josh done before the movie is done anyway. But we can actually, this is the I don't know if it's going to come up or not. Did it come up already? I don't know. I was going to give you because this has never before released publicly either. But I guess we can announce this.
I've always been an adorable kid. Heck, even when I became a full-fledged, honest-to-goodness superhero at 9 years old. I was still freaking adorable. Now I'm the costume savior of planet Earth, and literally everybody knows it. My uncle was with me when I was chosen by his favorite video game console to become that guy. This is the story of how my Uncle Patrick willed me into becoming the greatest superhero of all time, Just Josh.
No, Josh, no.
So the Just Josh TV show is going to be running. So what'll happen is the movie One Punch Man will get released, and then about a month or so later, I will release the pilot episode of Just Josh, and you guys will all be able to put the movie on your channels and stuff, so we get the maximum amount of viewers from it, and then my goal is to make Just Josh it's either going to be 10 episodes or 13 episodes. I haven't decided yet, but they'll be short. It won't be anything long. It'll be each episode will probably be under 30 minutes each for the TV show.
And it'll be and at least you're not starting your series with a TV show. You're starting a cinematic universe with, a movie like cinematic universes are supposed to start with.
Oh yeah, and then there's going to be more movies too. It's not just going to be those 3, but there's going to be 3 One Punch Man movies, and then there's going to be the Just Josh TV show, and there's going to be other stuff too. So you guys got a lot. I got a lot in store for the One Punch Man cinematic universe.
And I cannot wait, ZodWriter. I cannot wait. It's gonna be a really fun event. It's gonna be a really fun movie. And the event, of us all watching together, I cannot wait. It's going to be amazing, and I really appreciate you for doing this, for making me a star without me even having to lift a finger. I get to just be a star.
Oh, you do more. You do more than lift your finger. I'll tell you that. You definitely do. You're a star. That's why I say you need to put this on you need to put One Punch Man on your resume, because you are a bona fide leading man in this film.
Hey, it's on my Twitter profile. It's actually the star of One Punch Man.
Yeah, you're definitely in it.
And I do put it. I think I even have it on my dating apps too.
Yeah, you should. I'm telling you, you got in really good shape for this movie. So I'm
I'm excited, ZodWriter. I really am. It's good. It's gonna be amazing. And I guess coming up on this channel, really. Well, as I talked about Cell, I will say this: I watched the entire SnyderVerse this weekend, Man of Steel, BVS Ultimate Edition, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I'm more convinced that we need more. I'm way more convinced that we need more now more than ever, and I'll be hyping up One Punch Man a lot too. So, ZodWriter, any final thoughts and what's coming up on your channel?
Well, final thoughts. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun to talk about all this great stuff, and this not so great stuff. Definitely. And yeah, I'm just busy right now working on the One Punch Man movie. So just keep checking out our channels. I'll be making appearances on different channels and stuff to talk about One Punch Man, as well as continuing uploading various music selections for my YouTube channel. That's what I primarily put on my channel now, because a lot of that music is going to end up in the film. So
I cannot wait, Zod. I cannot wait. Guys, check out Zod's channel. Lots of great music. And coming up on this channel, I guess other than Cell stuff, I think Socks, if you're still in the chat, him and I were going to try to do a Venom trilogy review, because I like the format that Josh and I did with Joker, and we're gonna try that again with Socks and review all 3 Venom movies in one review for Marvelous Discussion. So be on the lookout for that, and yeah, be hyping up Cell, hyping up One Punch Man. So be on the lookout for that. And guys, if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more unique takes, interesting thoughts, and great discussions such as these. And on that note, any final words, Zod?
Qatar says we'll be talking about One Punch Man on Faith in Comics this coming Thursday night, which is great. That's the show that Bishop and Qatar do on Qatar's channel, and that it's another hub for One Punch Man trailers and news and stuff. So you want to follow Qatar too if you haven't already. But on that note, pow pow.
Have a bat-tastic day.